Hey guys, it's me, EODGamer here. Now let's talk about two investment styles that's commonly debated in gacha communities. The vertical investment style versus a horizontal investment style, which is the better investment in Honkai Star Rail. Now first things first, I just want to say that even though it may seem very extreme with all these pictures with so many different characters, E6, I'm just putting here for illustration purposes, but free-to-play players also do exhibit, and this video is applicable to any player in the game, whether you're whale or free-to-play. Pay to win is just a little bit more extreme, and I just want to start off with that. Now, what are the two styles? Vertical investment, the school of thought here is basically saying, go for good characters that are very strong, get as many copies as you can of them, get their signature light cone, skip all the other not so relevant ones into that playstyle, and build your teams around these very powerful units. Horizontal investment, on the other hand, believes that the more characters that you have is much better because the banners that will be like rotating, the new banners, all your memory of chaos and stuff like that will always be beneficial for the banner character. So horizontal investment theoretically is the best for long-term longevity. Free-to-play players might skip a few banners here and there. You might have less extremes, like instead of E6, maybe E2 if you skip enough banners. But by and large, these are the two different types of investment styles or the school of thought. Of course, it's not the only two. There is of course a grey area, but we'll touch on that in a little bit. Let's first go in with the four categories of players in gacha games. Now, I split it up into long-term players versus short-term players. So on the top here, long-term, short-term, depends on what kind of style you are. If you're a person that has phones, you have games on your phone that have been around for like 1-2 years, you're more likely a long-term player if you have been playing those games at least like maybe once a month, once a week kind of thing. Then there are the competitive or the not so competitive players. Full clearers and like you must get a full clear are more competitive, they're on the right side, and those that don't really care too much about full clearing are on the left. The first category is the easiest, the first quadrant. You are a short-term player, you do not care, you're probably going to drop the game in 2 months if you find something else that's like novel and more interesting for you. I would say to these players, just chill out, there's not much stress in terms of knowing all the categories. It's fun to know when one day you actually do find a gacha game that you really like. These theories and concepts can also be transferred over, and I hope that you find this video helpful for you as well. Otherwise, most people, I would say like 99% of the people watching this video, you likely will fall into one of these three categories or a mix of them at times. Now, the mix of them is the key part here, but let's first things first, talk about long-term players who play for a long time and don't really care about a full clear. My recommendation for this extreme group of people, of course, not everyone is going to fit into one of these buckets. Sometimes you move around, but long-term players and you don't care about full clear, not competitive, horizontal investment likely is going to be better for you because you want novel characters, you want a new play style, you want to experience the game more it has to offer. You want to get involved in the community whenever you can over a long period of time. Being a horizontal account, pulling many characters helps you do that. Although you will not like get the extreme S till 0, like turn clear and all that, it might be a bit hard because you're pulling every single character, you're splitting your resources everywhere. In this case, but you still get to play a long term. I think horizontal investment might help your playstyle a little bit more. And the other opposite, diagonally, right? Short-term players, you play for games for like 4 months, 5 months. You are maybe new to Honkai Star Rail right now too, and you're looking to full clear everything within the shortest period of time or with the minimum resources, you want a 0 turn clear and stuff. This group of people, vertical investment suits your playstyle very well because you are looking for competition, a very strong account to fast clear everything, to beat the game in the easiest time and stuff like auto battle everything. So short-term full clear, vertical investment style generally is favored to you. Now at this point, it may seem very black and white, like we are splitting up in 4, but you are probably thinking like, EOD, I don't feel like I'm always like one style or the other. I'm a bit of a both at some point, and I look back at your own like gacha history. You are right. There are no black and whites. This is just a very nice category of helping people understand where is the extremes, and all of us usually form somewhere in the middle. But let's talk about the last extreme here first before I talk about the other things and the middle story as well, which I want to cover very importantly for us to know which is actually better. The long-term and full clear players, this is a fundamental problem with gacha games. Not really a problem, but it's the business model. If you play in the long run and you want to full clear consistently all the way, if you are a free-to-play player, small spender, there will be a problem if you can full clear everything, no problem. Means that there's something wrong with their model, their financial monetization model. They'll just go bankrupt eventually and end of service very, very soon. So this is a huge problem. In order to long-term and full clear, most likely you need to spend a lot of money because you need both horizontal and vertical to get the best out of both worlds. Or perhaps you need a ton of luck. You need to be really lucky. Like some of you on Discord, you are sharing with us all your like multiple 5-star clears, 5-star pulls and stuff. That's incredible. You need to be super lucky also over a long period of time. But as we know, let's talk a bit about history. This is the advantage of Honkai Star Rail because we have already seen quite a good amount of history in Honkai Star Rail over like the period of 1+ years. Let's talk about the two styles. A lot of stuff on screen right now, but the two styles, horizontal and vertical, in the beginning, let's say, for example, my case, my scenario, and I'll also share my own personal experience with it also. I put E6 Zealer, and let's say someone did as well in the vertical style. You doubled down on the strong DPS, pull a signature, put multiple copies of her right at the beginning, versus someone who just pulls on characters that they like maybe skip 1 or 2 patches. You have like Zealer, Jingyuan, Kafka, and stuff like that. A vertical player is going to stomp the first like few patches all the way up to Panacony, no problem with Zealer, 3 stars, easy, maybe even 0 turn clears because you have a massive stack account. A horizontal account player might 3-star sum, and then 2-star sum, 3-star sum, because for example, maybe you didn't pull like the Blade and Luota combo. You might not fit into that rotating meta, but because you have so many characters that you have pulled, you have many different playstyles as well. Although they might not be built as well because you have more characters means more resources are needed, but generally speaking, you are 3-starring, 2-starring, 3-starring most of the stuff. And then when the meta changes after, like for example, Panacony, I use Panacony as like a nice bridge because the meta did start to change a lot since then. You have rotations into like follow-up, break, Akirion, and a little bit of DOT in the start of team compositions here. And the horizontal person is still going to pull like Akirion, Runmei, characters that you like, Boot Hill here and there. And you're probably still going to see the same rotation. 2-star sum, 3-star sum, because your Akirons are E0, all your characters are E0 only, you don't have their signature. You can just rotate 2-3 stars, and that is totally fine. A horizontal investment account player probably already expected that because he's not min-maxing any character, he's just getting a little bit of everything, as an extreme example. Whereas the vertical player, like the vertical investment player, spend $2,000 on a character, for example, or a lot of resources for a character like Zealer, can't afford anything, skips everything, and all the way up to Panacony, suddenly Zealer is no longer relevant anymore. Let's move this aside so I don't confuse anyone first. Then you start to see that once Zealer is no longer relevant, and she did become much less relevant, maybe because you do not have any Runmei, you do not have any other of the meta characters, you start dropping to 2 stars. And this drop here is very painful for a person in a vertical investment style, because psychologically you have been used to 3-starring everything, you have been used to clearing it auto battles so easily, and once you drop to that 2 stars, this is when a player in vertical style will start to feel a bit of stress. You might even drop the game because you are no longer the same as it was before, or perhaps you just don't want to have a reinvestment cycle, as I like to call it. So at this point, the drop is probably when players quit, or additional money or additional resources need to be forked in. Hopefully a player has saved enough by then, but even if they do save enough, they have to have the expectation that that banner that they are looking for when they first drop 2 stars has to be a pretty decent DPS. If not, they're just pulling on like some rando DPS that's maybe not super good, like maybe an Akirion kind of DPS. So that is the one key issue. Like timing needs to be involved, and after they reinvest in the particular character, then they're back to 3 stars again, and they can continue on their 3 stars. Let's say they have like E6 Akirion for a really long period of time. But that's basically a vertical investment style. If they don't choose to reinvest, they don't have $2,000 again, or didn't save any resources to maybe because they are refreshing to grind more relics, then perhaps they might drop to 1 star because they do not have the new cast, the new meta cast. They only fixated on learning 1 style, and then they will just drop to 1 star, and then they significantly underperform the horizontal investment style over a long period of time. So that's why we talked a bit about short-term and long-term, just to get you a better understanding. These images here helps us to understand a little bit better. But these are extremes, as some of you realize. The true question is, that some of you might be wondering is, EOD, is there then a middle ground for these 2 styles and a best way to play Honkai Star Rail? And here my answer is yes. So the 2 extremes shows you a good opposites of what might not be too healthy. Some people might be in extremes, but majority of you will lie in this special middle ground, and that's what I want to touch on right now, the middle ground over here. The rule of thumb, a long story short, to get the best value out of your Honkai Star Rail and the best investment for your overall account, a little bit of both. It sounds easier than it actually is, but you will first want to select good characters that last a long period of time. For example, characters like Akirion, for example, characters like Ranmei, characters like Fucc, etc, etc. So many other characters. I don't want to name everyone, if not it's going to take like a 1 hour video, right? Looking for these characters and investing them vertically in these particular strong characters, at least like maybe starting off with either the E1, E2 or their signature, or maybe good characters that can fill many teams as well and super versatile. These are strong characters for your overall account. Of course, the question would then be, in practice it's a little bit harder to do. That's why we always have these kind of investment videos that I talk about characters before the banner is even out, so we have time to plan, and I give you my second thoughts on whether it's worth investing in these characters. And that's why we try to give you some help as well to make better decisions. All of the characters that are currently meta, I'm proud to say that on the channel we have recommended all of them quite accurately as well. But of course, not to continue like tooting my own horn. At the end of the day, I think a good balance is pulling good characters, pulling their light cones, and forming strong characters that can fill teams that will last a while, allowing you to save resources on a little bit of other stuff. So if some other styles don't excite you too much, they're a bit more niche characters, you might not need to cool them urgently. Go for the generic ones. Build, and the next part I want to talk about is build teams rather than focusing on individual characters. So in this category over here, we actually have a video that we've done on the channel, the 8 teams of Honkai Star Rail. It has almost like 100,000 views or something like that by now. It teaches you all different 8 types of teams, but I will share with you now a very quick summary of it because we need that information to make a better decision too. Build teams instead of focusing on individual characters or like doubling down on characters randomly. You have to build account synergies. That's why we talk about teams on the channel. That's why we talk about investment value. It's very good for your overall account. Characters like Ranmei is like a hallmark example of a unit that can be played in so many different teams. The only teams that arguably Ranmei isn't excelling in, she can still be played there of course, is like debuff teams, because Ranmei doesn't really like debuff too much. HP decay teams, which benefits from HP decay, like Blade kind of teams, like Jade kind of teams, which are also niche. These 8 teams, why are there these kind of 8 teams, is because the Memory of Chaos buffs, the Apocalyptic Shadow buffs, if you look at all of them, Pure Fiction buffs, the buff tend to rotate into one of these 8 teams, and if you have as many characters to be played in one of these 8 cycles, you pretty much have it all the way checked. Of course, it's not so simple, you do need elements and stuff, but we talked about more of it in the 8 teams video. If you want to know more theory about these 8 teams and what we are going on, check it out. But otherwise, not only are characters, your support characters for example, they can be played into a lot very strong, so look for supportive units that can be played into versatile units because they will last a very long period of time in general. DPS characters I feel is a little bit okay to double down into one category, especially if they are outperformers in their class by a significant margin. An example of this will be Akirion. She is just super strong in the debuff category. She outclasses, like even in styles that favor going for follow-up attacks. If you have a strong enough Akirion, she just storms that stage as well. So outliers, really strong units are also something that you want to look out for. Doesn't mean a character is a little bit niche, can't be played into many teams, means they are bad. DPS in general tend to be outliers, and look for the outlier ones, and that will be my recommendation for a long-term account health. Of course, there'll be up and down cycles too. And if you found this video helpful, you found this useful as well, do like it, comment it, and I highly recommend you check out this team comp video, which gives you a lot more in-depth theory on the 8 teams so that you can start building your account for the best long-term growth. And share this video with any of your friends who also play Honkai Star Rail. I think they'll be very happy to see this theory too. And thank you guys again so much for watching, for your support as well. See you in the next video.